I'm live. Hi, everybody. I see. Wow, Jenny's here. Look, I have a jar of pickles on my desk. I have been trying to get around this jar of pickles. Okay, is my audio actually working? Yes. Okay, cool. Anyway, I have this jar of pickles because I thought it'd be funny to hold it up in my thumbnail image today, and then I didn't put it away because I'm like scary bad at not putting stuff away. So I'm just like it's in my way every time I put my arm down, and I got this keyboard here that's in my way every time I put my arm down. So welcome everybody. I haven't quite gotten my audio ready. I had a phone call right before recording this. So usually I have like my GarageBand up and my nose itches, of course, because I'm on video. And so I'm just getting this finalized. And today I'm not wearing my headset to hear things. So we'll see how that goes as far as starting at the right time, but I think we'll be good. I'm doing things a little bit different today. So this morning was a great morning. I got up and I sat, like 6 o'clock, just kind of woke up. I had weird dreams last night, weird anxiety dreams about events. And I kept calling my company Spark Freedom instead of Spark Communications Group. Don't know why. And I think it's because the spring workshop is on my mind. I'm sending an email out today to all the participants, letting them know it will be delayed. I've talked to a bunch of people on the phone already, but I'm looking to get the new date, kind of dialed in because I got a lot of people coming from out of town. So somebody who I called today called me back, and I had a great catch-up chat with them, but then that meant I didn't get my GarageBand ready. And then when I sat down this morning, I did my 3 things journal. This is like the list of everything I want to do, the 3 things. And I'm just going to share them with you. The first one is think about grandma. So today's April 1st. It's my grandma's birthday, my grandma who has passed away. And I like to think about her and all the love she gave me and the value she brought to my life. Like a lot of the stuff I do on the homestead are in part because of mom's sauce, but also because my grandma and grandpa grew and raised vegetables and were really into like fresh food and did canning and preserving. And they had frugal habits, which allowed them to retire early. So that was kind of neat. And then the other thing is I need to spend time on taxes because if I don't file my 2019s, then I don't get the magic $1,200 everybody's getting. And then I have a coaching package that I have designed in my head and not written down on paper for somebody who may be watching this. I don't even know. So that's going out today or first thing in the morning. It depends. Those take me a little while when I'm doing a coaching package. Like I have a consult call and then we set goals and then I write up a coaching package. Well, this one's that I'm writing up is a little bit different than most of the coaching I do. And the goals are really clear though. And I just I'm not quite sure how many sessions. So I'm going to probably write it so it doesn't have a bunch of sessions. But anyway, that's the 3 things for the day. But then I have all these other to-do list items. And really cool thing happened today. A bunch of coffee orders came in. So people are putting in 6-pound orders. I can fit 6 pounds in one flat rate medium box. So that's like the best value for shipping. Had a bunch of those come in today. So I'm going to be roasting my tail off tomorrow. Anyway, all that's been happening this morning. And I thought, today of all days, I can just schedule a live stream of the recording of the podcast and it'll be easy. And then I'm late. Anyway, so my notes are written on paper today instead of on the computer, but that means I can see your chat. And today's topic is 5 ideas for storing your pantry items. And I thought, well, what better topic to do live on YouTube that might have some interesting additional thoughts? So guys, if you have thoughts as we're going, go ahead and throw them in the chat. And if I can build it into the podcast, I will. I'm going to make it clear on the podcast that we're also doing this live. So I want to gather as many pantry storage ideas as we can come up with, things that don't make your life hard, but that do allow you to store more food. Because as we've gone through this pantry series and talked about organizing and what to store and how to set up a pantry restocking system. Now it's like, okay, where do I put all this stuff? What what if I'm full? Now what? So, and this is something we all face, I think. Everybody I know who has a pantry, it's amazing. No matter how big your pantry is, somehow you manage to fill it. So with that, I am going to jump in and start recording the podcast. You will see me looking down at my notes sometimes because they're down here and not up on the video. But Anyway, thanks for joining us, and I'm going to get going. Welcome, everyone, to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms rather than getting stuck living a life that somebody else wishes you would live if you would just live your life the way they want you to live it. Like, why do we even do that to people? I don't even know. But we do. And society does. Society has certain expectations, but who cares? You should live the life that makes you happy, that builds stability, and move forward from there. Today is Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. It's April Fool's Day. I don't have a good joke for you. Every April Fool's Day comes around and I'm thinking, man, I don't have a funny, because all I'm thinking about is grandma today. It's my grandmother's birthday. And when I was growing up, people did not believe two things. One, they did not believe my grandma's birthday was on April 1st because it's on April 1st. Two, they didn't believe she was an identical twin because it's on April 1st. Both of those things were true, however, and that meant I sort of had two grandmas growing up, which was kind of nice. Grandmother, and grandmother other were both in my life and both taught me lots of awesome things, many of which I've shared with you on this podcast. This is episode 189 of Living Free in Tennessee, and today I'm going to continue our Wednesday how-to series, including a little bit more focus on the pantry because a lot of people have been really interested in pantry management today. So we're going to talk about 5 storage ideas. 5 storage ideas for putting the stuff away that you now have stored that you're rotating through. And when I talk about storage ideas, I'm thinking of ways that you can store pantry items that doesn't require you to belly crawl under your house or something to get at what you need, because the key to good storage for your pantry is also being able to access it, even if it's, I have places where I walk outside and have to go get stuff, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but for long-term storage, that's fine. So even if it's kind of like that, but not where you have to do something silly to get at your items. And today we are live recording this on YouTube. If you didn't see on Facebook and MeWe, I posted that we would live record at 1:30. And I have a few people watching. If they have ideas about ways to store pantry items, I am going to include that in this episode just because I think this topic, I have 5 ideas. You have 5 ideas. Everybody probably has 5 ideas as they look around, and everybody's situation is different. Some of us live in apartments. Some of us live in studio apartments. Some of us live in tiny homes, campers, and houses, farmhouses, giant mansions. Everybody has a different living situation, a different set of needs for storage. And so therefore we'll have different ideas for storage. Okay. Before we do that, though, I do want to remind you that if you want to send me an email or a Stump the Sauce item, you can do that. It's Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, NICOLE @livingfreeintennessee.com. And you can just go to the website, click on contact, fill out the form. Those emails come to me. I've had a couple of good ones this week. So thanks for sharing. A lot of people have been sending me like words of encouragement. So thanks for sharing those with me. I kind of had as I admitted on Monday, kind of a grumpy morning, but I'm back into my positive self. Okay. With that, it's time for our first segment, which is Stump the Sauce. And somebody mentioned that new listeners may not know what Stump the Sauce is. Stump the Sauce doesn't have to be like trick me into not being able to tell you what to do with something, but it started as a sort of a game I played with friends who would say, okay, I'm home. I don't want to go to the store, and this is what I have. And I need to cook dinner, or I want to have breakfast, or whatever. Sometimes it's totally not food related, but usually it's food related. And so they'd put out the ingredients, and then I'd say, well, do you have this, that, and the other? And then we'd come up with something they could do without having to run to the store. Because as you know, it's kind of a waste of time just to run to the store for one thing. And when you get home from a long day at work, and it took you longer than usual to get home, and it's like 7 or 8 o'clock, and you're just now starting to think about what you might cook for dinner, the last thing you want to do is add 45 minutes to that by going to the store. And this is when we order takeout or we go to restaurants and then that wastes money, right? So we started this Stump the Sauce series in part just to see like ways to use what we have, to cook with what we have. And that's kind of what led to my cookbook being called Cook with What You Have, because that's what I do every day. And I think a lot of times we get really obsessed with sticking exactly to recipes, which is fine. Like you end up with a very consistent thing when you do that. But sometimes you just want to substitute stuff. So that's why Stump the Sauce came to be. If you have any Stump the Sauce questions, just send them in. This one comes from Facebook, and I can't remember who put it out there. I think it was Victoria. Not 100% sure. It might have been Janet. Anyway, we've got people who are not leaving their houses and not replenishing. And the question was, I want BLTs, but I don't have fresh tomatoes. I have a can of crushed tomatoes. What do I do? And this is one of my thoughts. My first thought was drain the liquid off the tomatoes and kind of pat them dry with a paper towel, and then make kind of a spread out of it by mixing it with mayonnaise or whatever else you put, mustard, whatever you put on there, and then make sure to put a little salt on it, maybe a little garlic or rosemary or something tasty. Oh, okay, that totally was me. Tori the mom. Tori's watching. Okay, it was Tori. I knew it. Anyway, and then you just spread that on the bread, put your lettuce and bacon on there, you have a BLT sandwich. And she tried it and it was yummy, right, Tori? It was yummy. Well, here's the cool thing that happened with that. A whole bunch of people came up with even better ideas, like blending it up with cream cheese and turning it into a spread, or just different ideas. Once people started talking about how to do that, you could totally crumble the bacons into the spread and you have this like bacon, tomato, cream cheese spread, and then lettuce and bread. All sorts of different ways to do it. So that was one way to cook with what you have when you don't have fresh tomatoes that yielded a really good BLT. In fact, Tori has just said, oh my God, I loved it. So it did turn out really well. And I thought the brainstorm on that one was awesome. Okay. Next up, it is Holler Hat Wednesday. So don't forget to go over to Instagram and check out @NicoleSauce and let me know. Where's the holler hat? What's she doing? We'll just see how that goes. And then finally, the last segment is what's up in the garden. And this is what's up in the garden. We're going to do a video. We've been watching a series called Wartime Farm, which is about food production in Great Britain during World War II. And at the same time, we have a pandemic going on here. And it has completely changed what we're doing on the holler this year as far as food production, garden, all of that stuff. And we were kind of like talking about over dinner what's changing. And so what's up in the garden is more like what's up on the homestead today. So we have a pig arriving tomorrow. I have a pig pasture. I wasn't planning to raise a pig this year. Changed my mind. The reason I changed my mind is I expect about 2 months from now that my income will be negatively impacted by this. And I want to keep my food costs down. And I was fortunate enough that a friend had a pig for sale and I know how to raise pigs and we have the pasture. So my two neighbors, and we operate sort of like a family unit, even though we live in 3 houses. My neighbors are down there fixing the fencing today to make sure Piggy doesn't get out. And you know what that means, right, guys? Piggy's going to get out. The other thing we're doing is a round of meat birds. Same friend who's selling me the pig is ordering his meat chickens for the year. And if everybody orders the meat chickens in one order, we get them for cheaper. And I had already decided to do a round of like 25. Well, now we're doing 50. So we're talking about how we're putting that infrastructure in place and getting things ready for that. And then finally, one of the other neighbors has already started doing meat rabbits. So we're doing more meat production. Today, we're going to be talking about how we're adjusting our vegetable production, because I was planning to keep the garden, kind of manageable, but a little bigger than last year, but not huge. But now I think we're going to do some row crops of beets and things like that. And we're talking about who manages what and what needs to be in place, because the worst thing I do is put a bunch of seeds out and then don't take care of it. So that is what's going on there. And I have a comment from online from Crystal. Electronet fence with solar charger keeps goats in. Yeah. Keeping the goat in is a totally different story, but we are redoing that fence today too. Like the next 3 days are all about fencing. Anyway, so with that, it is time for our main topic of today's show. Gosh, guys, I just made enough of a mistake. I'm going to edit. I never have to do that, but you get to watch it live. Main topic of today's show. This is what happens when my notes are different, by the way. So what I'm doing here is editing. And then I have no idea what I said. And it's not playing it. Hold on. This gets extra complicated. This is what really happens when I record the podcast, though. What did Nicole say? See, when I'm talking, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so with that, it is time for our... I said anyway in there. So with that, it is time... Okay, there's a, like, happily, I paused before I said so. Okay, we're gonna take 2. That's what it is right now. And with that, it is time for the main topic of today's show, which is 5 storage ideas for your pantry items. And the reason I started thinking about this is I basically I think it was last Friday, or no, it was Sunday, I started pulling everything out of all my cabinets and piling it places, and all the clutter off the stuff and piling it places, and deciding, A, am I getting rid of it? B, is it long-term storage? Is it medium-term storage? Or is it short-term storage? And this has caused my house to look like a burglar has broken in. And I'm still not done because I'm only getting about an hour or 2 a day on it. But it's making me look at how I store my pantry items. And I have a pretty good storage system, but it's time to make it better. And I thought, well, a lot of people are storing more things for the first time. I saw that Crystal online had completely reorganized her short-term storage in her kitchen, which was awesome. It looked really tidy. And I thought, well, okay, let's talk about if we live somewhere where maybe you don't have as much pantry storage as you'd like, what do you do about that? And guys who are watching online, do feel free to chime in if you have ideas. So here are my 5 ideas. And the first idea is the most expensive and the most time-consuming, but probably the most useful. And that is to build custom shelves. Go into your pantry, and if you have those wiry, shelvy things that you can adjust, that's fine. But what I would do is take those out and put in actual wood shelves, because I find the wire shelves, like you put a mason jar on the wire shelf and it gets tilty, and I don't like it. And I can never seem to adjust them close enough. And then if you're going to do custom shelves, know that this jar is just 6.5 inches tall for a wide mouth mason jar, but a narrow mouth is going to be about 7.5 inches. So it's taller. And know that it's 3 inches wide. What I do for my custom shelves for canning jars, which, by the way, canning jars make a really good way to store dry goods as well. You just twist those caps down real tight so that moths can't get in there. Pantry moths are bad, right? So I set mine up so that they are 3 jars thick. So it's back, medium, front. And then make sure they're as wide as that many jars would be, with like 1/2 inch of leeway so that you don't have cabinet doors that won't shut. Or what I want to avoid is having that extra spot of like 2 inches. It's not quite wide enough for a jar. So when you plan your custom shelves, think about what you're going to put on them and what size it is. Because I have other things I store that are not just mason jars, right? I have gallon jugs of vinegar, toilet paper, paper towels, like all of those things, cleaning items, bottles of ketchup. I don't even eat ketchup, and I have bottles of ketchup, by the way. And so once you assess what you have, you can build custom shelves. For me, it's easiest to do them for the mason jars. And for me, that's also more of a long-term storage. I use my kitchen cabinets for short-term storage, right? So that's my first idea. And the key really is how much you're going to store, how big are the jars. And one last comment there. I like the quart mason jars for storing dry goods, but the 1/2 gallon ones, the 2 quart, are awesome. I just took 25 pounds of rice because it was time to open from long-term storage my 25-pound bag of rice, which means it's time for me to order a replacement, right? Remember? That's how that works. And it takes 7 half-gallon jars for that to store. And I just pour it in all 7 jars and I put them all next to each other in my long-term storage, except for the one I have in my kitchen that I'm taking rice out, and it's done. The key is to have enough of those half-gallon jars, which right now, if you ship them, they sometimes break. But you can get them at Walmart, and you probably can just have them. At this point, our Walmart's doing curbside pickup because they don't want anybody in the store. Anyway, those things are awesome, and they're a nice consistent size. And then from a frugality standpoint, this lid, when it comes off, the lid at the top of a jar that's sealed, like I'm holding up a jar of pickles if you're on the video. When I take this off, if it's not too damaged, I'll use that for the resealable long-term dry goods storage. And, I don't keep every lid. Over time, if they're like rusty or something, I won't keep them, but you can reuse them. You don't have to use new lids even. So that all works out great. So that's my first idea. My second idea is one that I stumbled on because of the house I live in. My house is made out of cinder blocks. It's built into the side of a hill, so it's almost 50% underground, which is great for insulation. We had warm weather this week, and my house heated up. And then we had cold weather, and I didn't have to light a fire for a day or two. I can't remember how long it was, because it held on to the heat. It hangs on to the cool too. That's the awesome thing. In the summertime, when we have really hot days and we've had a couple cool days, it stays cool and I don't have to run my air conditioning as much. Well, the way the guy built the roof is he did the cinder blocks and then he put a steel beam all the way across the top of that. And then there are some down supports as well. And over that, he built the roof and the ceiling. And there is a gap between the top of the cinder block and my ceiling. It's totally sealed in, but it serves as a shelf. It is 1 mason jar wide. And it fits in the living room and kitchen, half-gallon mason jars. And in my bedroom, it fits, it also fits half gallons there too. So, but I put quarts in my bedroom because that's where all my pickled stuff is. So what I have is along the ceiling, a single jar wide of storage. Well, think about how that can work at your house. If you don't happen to have a cinder block house built into the side of the hill, which most people don't, you can still build a shelf over things. Some ways I've seen this done that look really pretty is over doorways. So between the doorway and the ceiling, they'll build sort of an ornate looking shelf and make it wide enough to pile jars up there. And then they take their fanciest canned goods and put them up there. You can also do what you want to do for this is choose a room that doesn't get overly hot or frozen and then put them in there. If there's one room in your house where the wood stove is blazing and the heat rises and it's always going to be hot up near the ceiling, maybe don't do it in that room. But that's a whole host of storage. I store, I think, 6 cases of jars above that one little shelf. And that's a whole bunch of shelves taking up wall space I don't have to build because it's over my head. Doesn't matter. The only issue I have is I have a little steppy stool I have to use to get at stuff. So that's my second idea. My third idea is one that may or may not work for you because you may or may not already be using this space. But there is a space. I don't know about you. In my bedroom, between the bottom of my mattress and the floor is a space. I don't store anything down there right now because it gets real dusty under there. But what you can do, that's where you put canned goods in in boxes, or you can put toilet paper things under there. So things that if they get dusty, it's not going to be a big deal. And then you can also protect them by covering them in plastic or putting them in cardboard boxes. If you are shipping everything in right now, Amazon's giving you ample material to do that. They even make Rubbermaid pull-out drawer-like things. If your bed is not tall enough to store things under it, you can buy bed risers. You can rise it up 4 inches. That's half my mason jar right there. So mason jars can go under there really well. Some people store blankets under there. I prefer mine in cedar chests. It's a huge area of storage. And the key to success here, because this is one where you can't just go in and look and see. you want to make sure you document somewhere what's under there, like what kinds of things go under there. If it's canned goods and you're going to do beans, peas, and pickles, then make sure you know the beans, peas, and pickles are under the bed here, here, and here. And that way you can load from the back and pull from the front, right? So when you have, let's say you have 5 cases of pickles you're putting under your bed, you put them under your bed in 2019, and then let's say in 2020 you made 5 more cases and you've only used one of those cases. When you go to put the new 5 cases, you pull the remaining 4 hypothetical cases of pickles out, put the 5 cases in the middle part of the bed, and then put the older ones towards the outer edge so that when you're pulling it out, you can get at those jars. Paper goods work great under there as long as you don't have frisky cats. I have frisky cats, so if I put toilet paper under my bed, I would come home to little tiny little shavings of toilet paper all over the house. So think about your specific situation if you're going to use under bed storage, and make sure what you put under there, it's not going to get tampered with by kids or cats or dogs. And if you do have the pet issue, then think about how you're packaging those things. For me, what goes under the bed really well are canned goods or liquor. Bottles of liquor go under there too, although I need higher risers than for a jar of pickles, for example. So that's my third idea. Idea number 4 is storage furniture. I had a wild debate last night with my next door neighbor about putting your sofa on risers so you can, just like the underbed storage. And he's like totally hip on that idea. I hate that idea because I don't like sitting on a couch with my feet like swinging and not able to touch the floor. And so if you go too high with your risers, it's really uncomfortable. And I like to be comfortable in my living room. So I said, well, what about like storage ottomans? Or if you build your furniture, you can have sofas with seats that pull up. And even the cheap ass sofa that I bought that is no longer in the house, but it is down in my workshop for karaoke, the karaoke room. The way it's built, you can actually, you don't want to do this with an expensive couch, but if it's kind of a cheap old one, it's fine. You can take the springs out and build a frame on top of it. And then there is a hollow area there for storage that is largely unused in many, many homes. So that's idea number 4, is think about the furniture you have and how it can be either modified into storage, or when you replace it, buy the storage kinds. Like the storage ottomans, I don't even know why any ottomans even exist that don't store stuff in them. So that's sort of a thing. And I'm having some online agreement about it's uncomfortable to sit on a couch and swing your feet. I'm pretty sure from Crystal, who says she's only 5 feet tall and her feet swing when she sits on anything. Does that mean you sit Indian style on the couch? Because that's what I do when I'm in that situation. Anyway, this is my last idea. Guys who are watching, if you have any ideas, now is the time to start throwing them out. Last but not least. This one's kind of a pull one. Like I had to push really hard for it. I actually have 2 ideas here, but I'm just going to tell you the first one. In my kitchen, I have areas where I store like big pots or casserole dishes, and I never need all the space from the back to the front. So a really easy place to store this would be considered long-term storage because it's a pain in the butt to get to store like macaroni and cheese boxes, crackers, whatever, canned goods, is to stack a single layer up the back of the cabinet and then put your casserole dishes or whatever in front of it. That gets you a little bit more storage. And if you have a really tight space, it's not a bad idea. You can do that not just in cabinets, you can do that along walls. My other idea, though, idea 2.0 of 5, so 5.2, is under stair storage. Some people have homes with stairs, and some stairways have access hatches for storage. Other stairways don't, and that is all just empty space. So if you have a house that does not have an under stair storage access area, build one. It's really not that hard to build, unless what's under your stairs is like your water heater or something, in which case you should have access to it. There are tons of, you can store so much under stairs, And there are all sorts of great ideas for building shelves under there that make it even more efficient. If you do have a water heater under your stair, which I did in my Nashville house, I could have stored almost a year's worth of canned goods under the stairway alone. I was watching Phi Nith, I think is her name. She lives in a tiny home, and she showed her under stair storage and how much stuff she could store under there for food of home canned stuff. And she had like enough to feed her family for a long time under there. So those are my 5 ideas. And I've got one that's just come online from Crystal. You can get a slide out for deep cabinets. I have a pantry that is very deep, and I put slide outs because I would lose stuff in the back of it. This is a good point. If you do deep storage, like under the bed, under the stairs, or in a deep cabinet, they make things on wheels so that it's almost like a drawer that you pull out, but it's not a closed drawer. And it slides out so that you still get access to the back of it without forgetting it's there, because you don't want to, like me, end up with, that can of sauerkraut. And I'm talking about a literal can of sauerkraut that you moved for 15 years and never ate. That's not how pantries should work, right? Another idea I'm getting from online is we have bulkhead doors that lead out from our basement, but we don't use them often. My husband built temporary shelves in there, and we use it as a root cellar during the winter. That's a great idea. Any basement can be used as a root cellar. My root cellar, which is also referred to as the prepper pantry, you have to walk outside to get to it. It's the garage to this house. And it's not big enough for a car to park in. It was always sort of a utility in the winter and keeping things from getting too hot in the summer. Anyway, any storage solution that you want to come up with has to pass a couple of tests, though. And this is what you need to think about. One, is it going to freeze? If you have a storage area that's going to freeze, you need to make sure whatever you store in there can freeze, like paper goods. Paper goods can freeze. Borax can freeze, the powdered kind. What you don't want to put out there are all your lovingly created jars of jam, have them freeze and break the jars and or create food safety problems, okay? So that's first thing. 2, what's the water and moisture situation? Is rain going to fall on it and leak? Is there a high humidity in the air that might cause rust in your canned goods? All of those things are important. You want something dry for a lot of storage, but some things can handle higher humidity. My root cellar is fairly humid. I don't put canned goods out there. I put potatoes and onions and sweet potatoes and squash, right? They can handle that humidity, but it's also not so humid that they're sitting in pools of water, because that would be bad. And then finally, is it too hot? So that same thing with the shelf above the ceiling, above the wood stove, that's too hot. That's too hot for canned goods. It's not too hot for TP, but it's too hot for canned goods. And you want to think about the environment, to keep food that you have self-preserved or dried the longest, you want to keep things at a lower temperature and not having a lot of access. Roast.com. We've recently made a change where shipping is included in the price of the coffee. So if you went there and thought, why did the price go up? That's why. It's actually the same price. I just have, for new clients, which we're getting a bunch of new clients right now, they would rather have free shipping than pay for shipping. And I knew my existing customers would be understanding of that as long as I don't charge them more money. The second way you can support the show is to a Sloan on to talk us through like how to get that set up, why to get that set up, and how that can impact and increase the traffic to your business and to your website. But Google My Business is acting funny because people are all home and businesses have gone from being storefront to digital suddenly. So that's a little bit on hold. I'm hoping that by May we'll have that back under control. But something a lot of you have shown interest in is cheese making. So I'm going to do a cheese making webinar next week. Next week, it's online to register. If you're a member, make sure you get your coupon code first to get it for free. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. If you don't want to become a member but want to take my introduction to cheese making webinar, you can do that. Just same thing. It's $50 for the webinar, and I am covering the basics of getting started with cheese making, and I'll show you how to make farmer's cheese, and I might be able to sneak some feta in there. It depends on the timing. I'm going to pre-record some video segments because if I were to have you online for the entire cheese making process, it would take hours because it takes hours to make cheese. It just doesn't take hours where that's all you're doing. So I'll show you the different phases and how I build that into my life. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Stop. Okay, well, thanks for hanging out and watching me record this, guys. I hope you enjoyed the topic today. I really would like to hear any ideas you have, because so many people who I know are living in apartments and just struggling with where to put all this crap. And I feel like we should be able to store a lot of stuff in apartments, right? Anyway, thanks for tuning in.